Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. This is GED Math with Mr. Leo. Today's lesson is part 4 of our unit on negative numbers. In part 1, we looked at the rules for multiplying and dividing. Part 2, we looked at the rules for adding and subtracting. Part 3, we did some mixed practice. And today in part 4, we're going to look at some more advanced techniques involving negative numbers. We're going to look at some more high-level skills that involve the rules that we've studied so far. We're looking specifically at more advanced GED math. We're going to do some work with parentheses and exponents. We're going to do some algebra. We're going to look at something called absolute value. We're going to do some test prep questions, and we're going to close out by looking at the very challenging formula called the slope formula. Now, this is not an in-depth lesson on those specific subjects. Those will be covered in separate videos. Today is specifically looking at advanced uses of the rules for negative numbers. Do you have your notebook? Make sure you have a notebook and a pen or pencil so that you can write down everything I'm doing on screen. If I'm writing, you should be writing. It's good practice, it supports good habits, and it gives you something you can look at later on. So grab your notebook and let's get started. All right, I have some important examples with exponents and parentheses I need to show you. So check this out right here. What if I had -2 to the third power? And then what if I had -2 to the fourth power? What would be going on here? We'll study these more in depth in a different video, but I want to show you how negatives play into this stuff. Okay, the definition of an exponent is we're going to multiply whatever's inside the parentheses by itself. Exponents are repeated multiplication. So this means -2 times -2 times -2. I'm going to write that out the long way. Here I'm using just the parentheses. This indicates everything inside will multiply. -2 times -2 times -2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Final answer here is -8. It's going to be negative because 2 of the signs will cancel out, but the third negative will land in the answer. Over here, I have -2 to the fourth power. So that means I'm going to have 4 instances of these -2's. So I want to take a little shortcut here. I don't want to write all this out step by step. Just do the numbers first, and then we consider the signs. 2 times 2, the first 2 make 4, times 2 again makes 8, times 2 again is 16. Final answer here is +16 because each pair of negatives will cancel out. There will be none left, making the answer positive. What about this? -1 to the 10th power. What is that going to be? Well, it's going to be 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. That's going to all be 1. So the real question is, will it be negative or positive? Well, because 10 is an even number, that means there's going to be 10 negative signs, and they're all paired up. All those pairs will cancel out. The first 2, and then the next 2, and then the next 2, and the next 2. Every pair cancels out. 10 is an even number. Final answer, +1. But what if it was -1 to the 9th power? Well, to the 9th power, you're going to have all the pairs will cancel out, but there will be one negative sign left over, making that answer -1. Okay, how do you feel? It's kind of weird, but you see what I'm getting at? I'm going to clear my screen and show you something very important. Look at the difference here. What is the difference between these two equations? Okay, the difference is clearly the parenthesis. So what does that mean for us? Well, the first one is what we've been doing. You'll see the parenthesis is grouping together the number with the negative. That is clearly -2 to the second power. That is going to mean -2 times itself times another -2. Final answer would be a +4. You might not like this, but the next one is different. Here's how it works. This is a language thing. We have to understand the language of math. The way this math works is this exponent is only touching the number 2. It's not actually reaching the negative sign. If you wanted the exponent to cover the negative sign, you would need to use the parentheses like the first one. This expression, the negative sign, only appears once, and it's the 2 itself is getting duplicated. The exponent is only on the number. That's why I see the number twice, but it does not reach the negative sign. The negative sign is only here one time. Final answer is -4. Please notice the difference. Write this down in your notebook. Here's another example. -5 to the second power versus -5 to the second power. When I speak it out loud, I said almost the same thing. But when you look closely, you see the difference. This first case here, the exponent covers the entire number and the sign, meaning the number and the sign are duplicated. It's -5 times -5, giving you a positive 25. This one, however, the exponent is only on the 5. The 5 is going to get duplicated, making 25, and the negative sign just appears once. The negative sign is not duplicated from the exponent. The negative sign is just there one time, and it will carry into the answer. That's a very important detail. If you're getting some questions wrong, this might be the reason. Double check your parentheses. All right. While we're here getting technical, there's something else we should bring up during this lesson. It is called absolute value. This comes up on the test. It's not actually that complicated. It's just you need to know what it is. Please write this down in your notebook. I've got some definitions for you. Absolute value will always be a positive number. If you have something in absolute value, the result will always be positive. The meaning of absolute value is the value of a number without regard to its sign. Without regard to its sign. Look at these examples down here. These are the absolute value symbols. They're these two straight lines. It's not a parenthesis. It's not a bracket. This is a specific math symbol. It is part of the language of math. It is the two straight lines. Now, they sort of function like a parenthesis. But you look at the first one. The first one, we have a 1 inside the symbol. So it is the value of the number without regard to its sign. What's the value of 1? Well, it's 1. Now look at this next example. The value of -1. Well, what's the value of -1 without regard to its sign? That's just 1 again. Look, you put a positive in, you get a positive back. You put a negative in, you get a positive back. Absolute value. Another definition, another way to think of it, is that absolute value is the distance between a number and 0. Well, how far is 1 from 0? It's 1 click away. Well, how far is -1 from 0? Well, it's also 1 click away, but in the other direction. All right, if the temperature raises 5 degrees, that's the absolute value change of 5 degrees. If a temperature drops 5 degrees, if it goes in a negative direction 5 degrees, that's still an absolute value change of 5 degrees. Absolute value is the value of a number without regard to its sign. Now, I wish it was just that simple, but they're going to put some math inside of these symbols. So check this out. Absolute value can be treated as a set of parentheses where the final result of the math inside will be made positive no matter what. So absolute value makes everything positive. But that doesn't mean if you've got individual things inside these symbols, inside these absolute value lines, it doesn't mean make everything in there positive. It means do the math, and then whatever your result, make the result positive. So here, this first one here, this is 3 take away 7 inside the absolute value. Well, that's combining negative numbers. I've got a positive and a negative. So I'm going to subtract to find the difference. The difference between 3 and 7 is 4. And then I'm going to keep the sign of the larger number. So that's going to become -4. But it's still inside the absolute value symbol. So what's the absolute value of -4? That's regular 4, positive 4. So in this case, the answer is 4. You get it? Don't just make it all positive. Do whatever math is there to be done, then flip that result positive no matter what. Over here, look at this last one. I have a division inside the absolute value symbols. -20 divided by 4. Well, a negative divided by a positive is a negative. That's going to be -5. But now remember, this is still inside the symbols. So what is the absolute value of -5? It's 5. That's the idea. Okay, let's just do a little more practice here. Tell me, what is the absolute value of -10? What is it? Well, that's going to be 10. What is the absolute value of 100? Part of my handwriting, but you see what I'm going for here? These lines are the absolute value symbol, and this is my 1 for 100. Get it? This result would be 100. Remember, math is a language and it's a visual thing. All right, what is the absolute value of 200? Well, of course, that's just regular old 200. The result of an absolute value will always be positive. What if there's some more math in here? All right, so what if I have -2 times 3? All of that inside absolute value. Well, first off, do the math inside. A negative times a positive is a negative. That's going to be -6. It is still in the absolute value symbols. So then to remove the absolute value sign, you just flip your answer positive no matter what. This would be +6. You get it? Take some notes on that. Make sure you have something in your notebook because this will come up on the GED test. Now, let's get into some sample test questions involving negative numbers. Here's something. Now, this is algebra. If you have no idea how this works, just follow along and take what you can from this. Don't let it stress you out. There will be a separate lesson covering all of this specifically for algebra. How do you know it's algebra? When you see the alphabet in your math, you're doing algebra. But let's go ahead and try this applying our negative rules. This is a sample test question. What is the value of 36x minus 8y squared when x equals 3 and y equals -6? Okay, do you know what to do here? Do you know how to get into this question? Basically, we're going to take the original piece right here, this piece right here, and we're going to substitute something for x and something for y. And they've given us these numbers over here. And when you substitute, just use parentheses and it's all going to work out. So I'm going to rewrite it here. You know what? I'm going to write the full thing first. 36x minus 8y squared. You'll notice this x is an algebra x. It's not a multiplication x. And they're telling us x equals 3. So right here, rewrite the whole thing. Bring down the 36. And instead of x, I want you to open a parenthesis and put the number 3 there. Okay. Bring down the minus sign. Bring down the 8. Now I see a y. Here is y equals -6. I want you to open a parenthesis and put that -6 there. And then don't forget that second power right there. The rules of order of operation, PEMDAS, tells us do the exponents first. Well, first you do parentheses. You do inside parentheses. There's nothing here to be done inside a parenthesis. Next step in PEMDAS, order of operations, is exponents. So let's do the exponent right here. -6 to the second power becomes +36. -6 times -6 is +36. Bring everything else down. Again, if you don't know what I'm doing, just follow along for the ride. Don't let this stress you up. There will be a separate lesson covering all of this. Now we have this right here. We know that if a number is directly touching the outside of a parenthesis, that's multiply. So this is a multiplication and this is a multiplication. All right, we've got 36 times 3. Feel free to grab a calculator and type this in. 36 times 3, that's going to be 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9. Include the 1, that's 10. That's going to be 108 over here. Now I'm just going to bring down the minus sign here. And now I have 8 times 36. So 36 times 8 now. Feel free to use a calculator. 8 times 6 is 48. Here's the 8. Carry the 4. 8 times 3 is 24. Include the 4. That's 28. This looks like 288. Now I have this. 108 take away 288. How are we going to finish this? This is a subtraction. You'll notice the signs are different. The 108 is positive. The 288 is being taken away with a minus sign. So when you see something like this, we need to subtract to find the difference and keep the sign of the larger number. Tell me right now, will this final answer be positive or negative? It's going to be negative because the larger number, 288, has the negative sign. So let's do a little subtraction over here. 288 minus 108. Start from the right. 8 take away 8 is 0. 8 take away 0 is 8. 2 take away 1 is 1. Final answer, negative 180. That was a sample GED test question involving algebra and the rules for negative numbers. Here's another sample test question involving negative numbers. The points -4 and 5 are plotted on a number line. What is the distance in units between the 2 points? All right, now this is a number line question. In my method, I have not used the number line with you guys. Now, if you're familiar with the number line, you could draw a number line and answer the question. But I'm going to show you how to solve this without even doing that. All right, we've got 2 points. We've got 2 numbers. We've got -4 and we have 5. Question, what is the distance between the 2 points? What is the distance between them? Now, what is that about? Distance between. This is about difference. Difference is subtraction. What's the difference between 10 and 15? Well, that's 5. Well, what did you really do? You just did a subtraction. 15 take away 10. What's the difference between 1 and 3? Well, that's 2. You just did 3 take away 1. So if they're asking the distance between 2 numbers, they're asking what's the difference between the 2 numbers. And that is subtraction. All right. So you can do this 2 ways. Easiest way is if you start with the largest number, 5 take away -4. You could also do separately, you could also do -4 take away 5. All right, so 5 take away -4, that's a double negative, that would become plus. That becomes 5 plus 4, which equals 9. Over here, -4 take away 5, the signs are the same. We're going to add the numbers and use the sign. That would mean -9. All right, so you might say, well, Leo, I don't understand which answer is it. I say they're both good answers, but you're going to see the 9 on the test. You're going to see the positive value on the test. You can almost think of it this way. Distance is usually expressed, let me spell that right. Distance is usually expressed as an absolute value. Oh, there you go. There's our vocabulary word for the day. Distance is usually expressed as an absolute value. How far is that thing from that thing? Not often are you going to say, oh, well, it's -10 feet away. You're going to say it's 10 feet away. How far are these numbers? Well, they're 9 units apart from each other. Distance is usually expressed as an absolute value, meaning give your answer as a positive number. All right. Here is another test question involving negative numbers. Now, this is some pretty serious algebra here. If you've never seen this before, if you don't know what this is, just come along for the ride. Don't stress it. There will be a separate video covering all this algebra stuff. They're asking us here to subtract. Really, what we're also doing is we are combining like terms. All right. Basically, we're going to put our x's with our x's and our y's with our y's. What makes this tricky is all the minus signs. Now, here's the big idea. This first one, that represents 3x, no problem. This next one, that represents -4y, no problem. Here's the next part. You see the minus sign in front of the parentheses? That means they're taking away everything. That means the minus sign is going to affect this number, and it's going to affect this number, meaning the last number is going to get flipped. Okay, the negative, and then hitting the 4x is going to be -4x, no problem. But then this 3y, here's how they try to catch people. Don't write -3y here. You got to write plus 3y. Why is it plus 3y? Because this negative sign is affecting this negative sign also. All right? It's going to be negative the subtraction. It's going to be subtracting the subtraction. It's going to be minusing the minus. If you hate to hate, you're a lover. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the line of text that we need to go for. All right, now we're going to put our x's with our x's and our y's with our y's. Okay. I'm just going to rewrite it. Why not? Let's just rewrite everything over here. I have 3 x's. I also have -4 x's. See how I got that? And then I have -4 y's, and I also have plus 3 y's, right? See how everything here is simplified? Only one sign on each number? We're good to go. So put your x's with your x's. 3x take away 4x. Those have different signs. We're going to subtract to find the difference. Keep the sign of the larger number. 4 take away 3 is 1. Keep the sign of the larger. That's negative 1x. All right. Next part down here, negative 4y plus 3y. That's actually very similar. The signs are different, so we subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So I have negative 1x and I have negative 1y. We got to put that all together. Which answer choice is going to say that? Well, this is an algebra skill, but the final answer is negative x minus y. That is the simplest answer you could get. You'll notice the invisible 1 in front of each number. If you see x by itself, that means 1x. You might be looking for this. I could imagine someone says, oh, it's going to be negative 1x plus negative 1y. If you said that, you're totally right. The only thing is that that can be simplified. Negative 1x plus negative 1y, that's completely true. That's accurate, but it's going to get simplified. We're going to remove the 1s. They're not really needed here because by default, it has a 1 in front of it. It's a negative 1. So this negative 1x is just negative x plus minus. Remember this part, plus minus. If you love to hate, you're a hater. That's why it's just a negative sign. And again, we remove the 1. This is the final answer. As you can see, it's been marked over here. All right, if you like that, there's going to be another video covering all this algebra. Right now, we're focusing on negative numbers. Simplify each expression using the given variable. All right, this is hardcore algebra. You ready? Okay, they're telling us to use this number. If I see x, I'm going to use 8. And the key is when you substitute, when you plug it in, use parentheses. So let's rewrite everything else. Negative 4 is negative 4. Open the parenthesis that we see already. Negative 5 is negative 5. Now, instead of x, I'm going to open up a parenthesis here and drop in the number they gave us, which is 8. Close that parenthesis. That 8 in parenthesis is replacing the x here. Bring down the rest. That's going to be plus 7 and close the parenthesis. All right. You writing this down in your notebook? You writing this all down? Okay. Now, the rules for order of operations, also known as PEMDAS, tells us we have to work from the inside out. We start with parentheses, working from the inside out. So let's go inside the parenthesis. Here we have all of this in a parenthesis, and then we have the 8 in its own parenthesis. Well, since the 8 is by itself in its own parenthesis, there's nothing really to do there. It's just an 8. So we'll look at this larger parenthesis set right here. Now, the language of math tells us that if I have a number directly touching the outside of a parenthesis, that's a multiplication. So this is negative 5 times 8. That will make negative 40, right? Negative times a positive is a negative. Then I'll just bring down the 7 here. I'm just going step by step. Close the parenthesis and then bring down the negative 4 out front. We'll be dealing with that last. Let's have this continue over here. All right, so negative 4 is just sitting out front. We're not dealing with that yet. Open the parenthesis. Now, I'm going to clear this parenthesis. What is this? Negative 40 plus 7. Let's do that. Signs are different, so we're going to subtract to find the difference and keep the sign of the larger number. That will be negative 33. Close the parenthesis. Now it looks like this. Remember, this is a language class. What does this mean? What is next? Well, if the number is touching the outside of the parenthesis, that means it's multiplying. So we are effectively going to multiply negative 4 times negative 33. Feel free to type that into your calculator, but tell me this first. Will the answer be positive or negative? It will be positive because the two negatives will cancel out. I'm going to do it over here. 33 times 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Carry the 1. 4 times 3 is still 12. Include the 1. That's going to be 132. Final answer, positive 132. All right, one more. You want to try it on your own? If you want to try it on your own, pause the video and work it out right now. If not, I got you. Let's break it down. Here we go. We're going to rewrite it. We're going to replace B with 4. Remember, use parentheses. Bring down the 5. Open up the original parenthesis. Bring down the minus 6. Now here I have the letter B. We're going to open another parenthesis. Put the 4 in there. Close that parenthesis. and then we're going to bring down the rest of it. So bring down the plus 2 and then close the first parenthesis. All right. Similar to the first one, we're now going to use order of operations. We go inside the parenthesis. What can we do? Well, this 4 is inside its own parenthesis, but it's just a 4. There's no math to be done. It's just 4. So that parenthesis is cool. The parenthesis in this case is mostly here to indicate a multiplication. The original one had negative 6b. That's negative 6 times b. So here we have negative 6 times 4. That will be negative 24. All right, just bring down the plus 2, and we can still close the parenthesis. We're making progress here, and bring down the 5 in front. All right, now let's clear the parenthesis. Negative 24 plus 2. Signs are different, so we'll have to subtract to find the difference. The difference between 24 and 2 is 22. Keep the sign of the larger number. Keep the parenthesis on it for now, and put that 5 right in front. See what we did there? We just solved what's inside the parenthesis. Negative 24 plus 2 makes negative 22. Now let's finish it right here. This indicates a multiplication. This is not 5 take away 22. It's not. Look closely. Why is that not 5 take away 22? Because of the parenthesis. The parenthesis is indicating a multiplication. Whatever is touching the outside of the parenthesis is going to multiply with what's inside. So this is effectively 5 times negative 22. So tell me right now, will the answer be positive or negative? Negative, because a positive times a negative is a negative. If you love to hate, you're a hater. So let's do the math. I'm going to do it on the side here. 22 times 5. All right, 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is still 10. Include the 1. That is 11. Looks like 110. Final answer, negative 110. All right. We're doing some serious algebra here. Don't let it stress you out too much. Don't let it ruin your day. There will be more lessons on algebra later. Just please pay attention to how these negative rules are working. Okay, we're doing great. We've done negatives and positives with adding, subtracting, multiply, and divide. We've done word problems. We've done some exponents. We've done some long strings of numbers. We've done some test questions. We did some thermometer questions. We did some algebra. I want to show you one more thing while we're here. If you don't know what this is, if you've never seen this before, this might not make any sense. Just follow along and see how I'm applying the negative and positive rules. Right now, I want to look at the slope formula. The slope formula is used in functions and graphing, and it's on your GED reference page. They're going to give you this formula, but you have to know how to use it. The key is we're just inputting X's and Y's, but there's a lot of minus signs. That's why I want to talk about it today. All right. This is the slope formula. Here it is right here. All right. Slope is often used with the letter M. This is the slope formula. You'll notice it is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Without saying too much, the idea is that every set of points here is an x and a y. You want to plug these numbers in and work it out. If we look at this example here, on top, and this is always the case for the slope formula, are the y values. One of the y's minus the other y. It doesn't matter which one you start with. The point is use one of them, then use the other. This is an example. This one's been done for us. It looks like they started with the negative 2. That's right here. That's a y value. So it's negative 2. That's a y value. Notice then a minus sign from the equation itself, and then y1. This is the other y value. In this case, that's 8. Please notice this 2 and this 1. These are not exponents. These are not powers of 2. These are below the number. If this was an exponent, it would be up in the corner. But since it's down low, it's just a label. It's saying this is y2, that's y1. This is one y, that's the other y. So they started with minus 2, minus 8. The minus 2 is the first point, the negative 2, the subtraction sign from the equation, and the 8 is the other y. Down below, very important, they started with 3. They did it correctly. Here, you don't have a choice anymore. Since on top, I started with the minus 2, down below, I got to start with the 3. Okay, now there's a subtraction sign from the formula itself. then the other x value. In this case, it is 4. Now, this will take some practice. There'll be a full lesson on this later on. For now, just check out what I did. This is what we now have to solve. There's a lot of minus signs, so we got to use these rules. Let's do what's on top, let's do what's on bottom, and then we'll finish it. All right, -2 minus 8, what is that? Well, the signs are the same. We're going to add the numbers and use the sign. That's -10. On the bottom, we have 3 minus 4. The signs are different, right? That's a +3. So we subtract to find the difference and use the sign of the larger number. That's that -10/1. Now, this is another way of showing a division. Did you know every fraction is a division? Look at it. See how it kind of looks like the division symbol? Look. See, I got the slash, and I got the number here and the number there. I got the slash, the number here, the number there. Every fraction is a division. So this means -10 divided by -1. Negative divided by negative is a positive. If you hate to hate, you're a lover. Final answer here is 10. This is the slope formula. We're not going too in depth today. I'm just showing you how these negative number rules are crucial for the slope formula. If you have problems with negatives, good luck with this. It's going to be a mess. Let's do a few more to close out this lesson. You're doing great. Even if you don't know this math, just come along for the ride. All right, here we go. The slope formula. Here is a picture. All right, all you need to know is I'm using these numbers right here. All right, this is our information. Every one of these coordinate sets is an x and a y. Always, always, always. I like to label them x and y so I don't get mixed up. Now, here is the slope formula, sometimes known as rise over run, sometimes known as m. This is what you got to do right here. Okay, you take one y, you subtract the other. Which one do you want to start with? It doesn't matter, just pick one. Let's start with the 6. I'll start with the 6 up here. I have a subtraction from the formula. Now I have the other one. Look, the other one is negative, so this is going to create a double negative. That's good. Go ahead, write that out. Don't miss one of those signs. Okay, now that is y minus y. Now let's do x minus x. Very important. Since I started with the 6, I must start with this number that goes with it. So down below, I start with a -2. Don't forget the minus sign from the equation, and then the other x value, 3. -2 minus 3. Technically, what this formula is doing is calculating the distance. What's the difference in height? What's the difference across? All right, let's do a little math here. 6 take away -4. What do we do? Well, these two signs are going to cancel out. That's a double negative. We could rewrite this as 6 plus 4 on the top. Down below, I'll just copy over what we have. Here is our first simplification. Let's keep going here. 6 plus 4, what's that? 6 plus 4 is 10. Down below, I have -2 minus 3. The signs are the same, so we'll add the numbers and use the sign. That's -5. Now I have 10 over -5. Remember, it looks like a fraction, but it is a form of division. This means 10 divided by -5. Let's finish this. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and we're going to bring over the sign. A positive divided by negative is a negative. Final answer here is -2. The slope of this line is -2. We calculated that using the formula. We could have done that even without a picture, just by plugging in x and y into the formula and very carefully applying the negative rules. Now, this is serious business. I'm just showing you this stuff. If you really want to get into it, though, slope is -2. How come? Because it's going down 2, down 2, down 2, down 2, down 2 every time. This picture might have an issue if you get in there close. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're doing great. All right, guys. Last question of the day. Here we go. Slope formula. All right. Rise over run. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. First thing I like to do is label these xy, xy. It doesn't really matter which one you call 1, which one you call 2. Just start with 1 and then start with the same one on the bottom. So I'm going to start with the first thing I see. I see the 3 first. So, no, my bad. I see the 6 first. We got to start with the y's. Make sure you start with the y. Okay. 6 on top, Subtraction sign from the formula, take the other y value, 6 minus -4. Okay, on bottom, since I started with the 6, I must start with the 3. Subtraction sign from the formula, and the other number, -2. All right, let's do a little math right here. These are both double negatives. This would simplify to 6 plus 4 on top. And on the bottom, this would be 3 plus 2. 6 plus 4 is 10. 3 plus 2 is 5. 10 over 5. This becomes 10 divided by 5. Final answer, +2. And you'll notice that does fit the picture. It's moving up in a positive direction. From left to right, this graph is going up. It's going up 2, up 2, up 2, up 2, all the way. But Leah, what if you started the other way? Well, let's say you started down here. We start with this y value. -4, subtraction sign from the formula, the other y value, 6. Now down below, since I started with this y, you got to start with this x, that'd be -2. Subtraction sign from the formula, and it's going to be 3. Put these together. On the top, the signs are the same. Let's add the numbers and use the sign. That's -10. On the bottom, the signs are the same. Let's add the numbers and use the sign. That's -5. Now we have -10 divided by -5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. It's a double negative. They'll cancel out, and we still get the answer, +2. So it doesn't matter which one you start with as long as you're consistent. This has been a preview of our slope formula lesson. We'll be covering all of that down the line, functions, algebra, and all that challenging stuff. I got you. I'm here to break it down for you. My name is Mr. Leo. You're watching GED Math. All right, we're going to wrap it up right here. I just want to put on the screen one more time. These are all the rules. This is the key. Make sure you have this written down in your notebook. All right, keep these rules handy. The more you practice, the more it'll stick in your mind and you can move forward. As you can see, when we're doing algebra and slope formula and all this stuff, you don't want to get caught up on these rules. You want to be comfortable with these rules. So please keep practicing, keep it right here. If there is one thing you got to get under control to pass the GED test, it is the negative numbers rules. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know, what should we cover next on the channel? What do you need help with? What is driving you crazy? Tell me in the comments below and we'll get to it as soon as possible. Let me know any questions you have. Leave your questions here. Comments are great. And please, last thing, if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the channel and send this video to a friend. If you know anyone that could use my help, pass it along. It's word of mouth recommendations like that that'll really keep our channel growing. Stay positive, keep studying, keep using your notebook, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.